Are you curious what it really takes to build a six-figure business? Are you currently building a business and are frustrated by your growth, or you seem to get some things right, but other things seem to not be at the same level? Well, there are six components that I see being absolutely imperative to building a six-figure brand. And that is what we are going to talk about today on the Possibility Mom Live. So, I first want to say that my wide awake I am wide awake. If you're watching this on YouTube, I just have to tell you, it has been a very interesting, challenging week of a newborn who has been extra gassy. Oh my gosh. And so when I get those moments where I can take a shower and feel wide awake, thank you, Beauty Counter Vitamin C Serum. Today's wide awake look is brought to you by the Vitamin C Serum. I just feel so good. Anyway, so just wanted to share that with you. How nice does it feel when you're a tired mama to feel alive and well? And this is why I love doing this show and I love coming on here and spending time with all of you on Fridays. It is just a highlight of my week. And I love pouring my heart into content and concepts that I wish I had when I started my motherhood journey. Something that's become very clear to me is that I want to help people discover God's beautiful plan for their motherhood and their business. And this podcast, for those of you who are building businesses, I hope this becomes the kind of podcast that you come back to. I hope this is the kind of podcast, this particular one is one that you take notes on and that you can reference again and again because I have been in the pursuit of creating all this content I've been creating recently. And a reminder, this is sort of a new shift for me. I've only started really leaning into business coaching, especially business for Catholic mothers in the last 2 years, really. And so it's just been very clear to me what I am going to share on this podcast that I feel like just is not always talked about as holistically as, in my humble opinion, I would prefer, and what people actually need to grow their businesses to the six figure level and beyond. Now, I want to preface all of this and say if you don't want to build a six-figure business, then like that's don't worry, it's totally fine. Not everybody has to build a six-figure business. I really want to stress that. I like to use the six-figure mark as a way of as a benchmark, essentially, um, where you can assess. I do believe that once you get to the six-figure level, so where you're making $100,000 or more, you have a bit of a checkbox that there are things that are working because you have evidence that enough people have been willing to pay you money. Typically, again, there's some exceptions to this rule, I'm sure, but I think this is a healthy level to strive for in terms of knowing that you have some health in your business. If there are that number of people willing to pay you that much money, then you are very likely on your way to scaling. But so many entrepreneurs that I meet have yet to reach this milestone. And so this podcast specifically is for people who want to hit this milestone, want to have a healthy business, and it's particularly for people who are frustrated. So, I want to reference last week's podcast. Last week, I did a podcast on why entrepreneurs fail. And there's definitely some ping pong between this podcast and last week's podcast. So, I want to invite you to go back and listen to that episode. We will put it down below in the notes if you haven't listened to it yet. But if you are frustrated, and I'm in a couple of Facebook groups where I'm very blessed that my Wealth Without clients often tag me in specific questions on things like my funnel isn't working, or I'm spending so much time on social media, or I don't have great work life balance. I just feel so blessed that my Wealth Without Guilt group members will often tag me in these specific questions. And just the other night, I was tagged in a question on a funnel not working. And I had very short correspondence. I haven't looked at the funnel or anything, but this, and I don't know the beautiful woman who I was corresponding with. I don't know her very well. I don't know her business at all, but I could, in her post, I could identify with the pain. And she was simply saying that I have built these funnels. I've spent so much money in, an ad campaign, in graphic designers, and all these things, but it's still not converting. And I feel like I'm at my wits' end in my business. Another theme that I have sort of been around lately. And so if you feel like you can identify with about what I'm about to say, this podcast is for you. For the woman who has been doing this business, but not getting the success that she desires, and she's really feeling like she has to justify it to her husband. I get a lot of DMs and a lot of emails around, I think I have to quit because my husband is like, why isn't this working? And if you know my story, you know that my husband was one of those people. Just really quickly, my husband did not understand what I was doing. He would be like, I mean, he supported me and he was very, I guess, intrigued, and he would see some of the financial compensation from it, but he didn't really get it. He would be like, "Did you just talk to your computer again all day? Like, what are you actually doing? What are you actually doing to build a business and make money for our family?" There was a long time when he would just keep saying to me, "It looks like our business is, or your business is costing us more than it's making." So, long story short, if you can identify with a struggle in growth, like there's something you feel like is broken or missing from your business and it's impeding you from growth, I really want you to listen to the 6 components that I'm going to talk about today. And here comes Andrew to join us on the podcast. You want to say hi? Hi. Say hi. Alrighty. So these 6 components, and I've put them sort of in order, but not really. Like, I'll be honest with you, I think they are components that have to always be looked at and worked on. I truly think they all need to be worked on simultaneously. But there are definitely some elements that need in each of these components that I'm about to outline that need to be addressed from the beginning. But then there also is an ongoing maintenance, so to speak, or an ongoing um, uh, development. The development is never finished. You cannot be stagnant in these 6 areas. So, are you ready to hear them? Are you ready to hear the 6 components that I believe are essential to a 6-figure business and beyond? Let's get into it. All right. So, here we go. Okay. So these 6 components, I believe, are as follows. And we are going to unpack these one at a time. I encourage you to take notes. I encourage you to reflect on what areas of your business do you need, could maybe use a little bit of love. Which areas of your business are you totally rocking in it right now? I encourage you to reflect and look at the various components in your own business. Okay, so component number 1 is your mindset. You have heard me talk about this, I feel like ad nauseum on this podcast, but just in case we're new to each other, I am a Catholic mindset coach trained by Metanoia Catholic. I believe that this is truly the linchpin and the piece that most entrepreneurs overlook. So, number 1, mindset. Number 2, a personal brand. Number 3, content that changes lives. Number 4, a way to buy. Number 5, a way to attract new people. And then number 6, trust, so that you get a heck yes. So let us go one at a time and unpack all of these. Okay, so number 1 is a growth mindset. So I want to tell you a story of why I believe this is so important. And I have a webinar that I am doing this Wednesday where I share this story more in depthly. And so you can find the link to register for my webinar in the description below. But a huge thing happened to me when I started investing in mindset training. Now, if you're familiar with my story, you may have heard me say this. When I was um, uh, about a year ago, I was looking to invest in further coaching. I've always had coaching. I really believe in coaching. I've always had either a business coach or a personal development coach of some kind. I've 100% almost always had a business coach. And I was looking at my next investment. I was looking at a lot of secular programs, really, really great programs, ones that I had been on the wait list for many years, or on the mailing list for many years. And I was really discerning my next move. And I'll just be honest with you, sometimes I can get very what's the word, impulsive. And this was one of those times when something is convenient. I can sometimes be a little bit compulsive impulsive because it's convenient and I want to take fast action. So um, I met my coach, Erin Ingold, in front of the church that I go to. And I had seen her around town, and it is hard to miss her because she has the most epic head of hair. Like, this woman, her ability to backcomb her hair is just next level. And I desire to have height on my hair as high as Erin Ingold. I don't know. I can't do it myself. Anyway, but I had seen her around town. She always looked so cute. I was like, she and I would be friends, I have a feeling. And then I met her in front of my church, totally socially. I think I had my kids, they were climbing a tree, and her child was in a stroller. Like, it was just a very casual kids running around type of encounter. And she introduced herself as a Catholic mindset coach, and I was so intrigued. And I learned where she had received her training in life coaching, and it was from the life coach school. And that was one of the entities or schools that I was looking at for my own continued formation. So when I was like, "Oh, you're like so cool and have the cutest hair, and you and I would be friends, and you're trained in life coach," I think I literally signed like that day. Like, I literally texted her and was like, "Hey, can we just move forward? Because I really want to get coaching." And everything from that period onward changed my life, because so much of entrepreneurship, hear this loud and clear, so much of entrepreneurship exists in your mind. Think of all the times that you might be like, "Oh my gosh, my business is failing." And I can speak from personal experience when I have had those thoughts in the past and even present. You've heard me talk a lot about that on this podcast. When I have those thoughts, even in the present, I am tempted to go to my pantry and eat Doritos. I am tempted to open the freezer and get out some ice cream. I'm tempted to pull up my phone and online shop. I'm tempted to do anything but work on my business. This is mindset. The ability to pivot, the ability to address and hold space for the negative emotions, the ability to think different thoughts, the ability to assess and become more objective about your thoughts about yourself and what failure and even success, all these things mean about you, is all mindset. And I believe that this is the deal breaker. Without mindset, without a growth mindset, I believe that an entrepreneur is going to stay in the same place for her life. So, if you are struggling with growth in your business, this is probably the very first place, but this is also, I think, one of the hardest places to change because of the brain. The brain, of course, becomes habitual. The brain, of course, becomes very programmed, so to speak, to respond to things in a repetitive way. And so this can also be one of the hardest places to change. But I put it right at the front because without a growth mindset, I do not believe an entrepreneur will scale to six figures and beyond. Okay, so that is number one, a growth mindset. The second component to a six figure business is a personal brand. And what do I mean by a personal brand? So, this is a really interesting one. And I want to tackle this from both branding from a visual and sort of technology point of view, and then branding from a more intangible um, and more conceptual point of view. So, let's tackle the first one. I believe that everybody needs to have a brand where you come onto your website, you come onto Instagram, you come onto any entity that you have online, and there's a little bit of consistency, both in colors and in your photo, and in there's some kind of clarity that, oh yeah, this is the same girl that I saw over here. So that is simply some aesthetic decisions. That is simply just some consistency, using the same photo everywhere, using the same language everywhere. You're not like, known for being an expert on one pillar, on something. Like, for example, your Instagram is not just like home images, but then you go on Facebook and then all of a sudden you're talking only about cats. I know that's a really random example, but my point is that there is a little bit of a holistic approach to how you communicate who you are online. So that's a little bit of color and branding, and simply just being strategic and consistent on all the different places that you decide to talk. But from a more intangible and more conceptual thing, a personal brand is who you are. A personal brand is what you choose to talk about, how people feel when they are encountering you online. A personal brand is some clarity around who you are and who you help. There's some clarity there. Some of this is more conceptual, meaning that it's the ideas you are talking about. It is the fact that you communicate often. I help entrepreneurs build six-figure businesses, for example, or I help Catholic moms discover God's plan for their motherhood and their business. There's a understanding of what you do fairly quickly. That is maybe a simple way to describe a personal brand, that there is an understanding of who you are and what you do fairly quickly. And again, this has a lot to do with the kind of images you decide to post. This has a lot to do with the kind of content that you talk about, which we'll get to in a moment. This has a lot to do with being clear yourself, who you help, who you serve, what you want to be known for. I believe that today we are living in a really fun time where you can be known for many different things. So you can be known as a business coach, but you can also be known as someone who sells beauty counter. It does require a little bit of strategy and a little bit of planning, how that all looks like in, like an umbrella, so to speak. But I do believe that it is very possible, and um, a really fun way for a mom to build a business, because your personal brand is based on you. And so there's none of this, like, in my opinion, you're not necessarily creating something, you're not creating an entity, you're creating from your life. You are capturing from your life. You are showing and you are telling simply from your life. And that is why I believe that personal branding is so interesting and so relevant and so strategic for moms today, because you can be creating simply from your life. You can be mining your experience, you can be sharing stories, you can be in real time sharing the struggles that you are going through, when who you are is your personal brand. When you embrace the concept of personal branding, I just really believe it's a very strategic and very leveraged way, especially for a mom to build a business, because you're creating from your life. And so this is a if you are struggling with your growth, if you're struggling with attracting the right kind of clients, this is where I would encourage you to look at your personal brand. Are you telling a story that is clear? When people land on your Instagram, is there a sense, oh yeah, this girl is for me. Oh yeah, this girl will help me. Oh yeah, I get a sense of what she is about. I've heard it described like at a party. I think I want to say Hillary Rushford. I think I learned this from her, that, when you go to a party and you meet people, PS, when's the last time you went to a party? I'm like so in newborn exhaustion stage. I'm like, when's the last time I've been to a party and like talked to adults in this way? Anyway, I digress. But when you go to a party and you might be meeting people, strangers or what have you, and you just might get into a conversation, when you introduce yourself, you are probably leading with something like, oh yeah, I'm a coach for moms, or oh yeah, I'm a Catholic mindset coach, or there's just you're introducing yourself, highlighting who you are. Your personal brand is kind of like that. It's like when somebody meets you at the party that is Instagram, quote unquote, or the quote unquote party that is scrolling on a woman's phone, does she know a sense of who you are? Like, when is it a quick introduction? All right. So I hope that makes sense. A personal brand to me is the most leveraged way for a mom to build a business because it's coming from your life and you're not creating anything other than what you are living. I get so riled up about this, why I believe a personal brand is so important and why I believe that it's such a great way for a mom to build a business. You can just tell so many stories from your life. So, if you are struggling with growth, this might be an area to look at. How clear is your story that you are telling online? How clear is it to other people what you do, who you help, and how clear is it that you help them? You could also describe personal branding as your niche. How clear have you communicated your niche and the people that you serve? But I really love the language of personal brand. All right, so that is number two. Number three is consistent content that changes lives. Okay, so once you have a growth mindset, once you have a personal brand that really clearly communicates who you are, who you serve, how you help them, we need to provide consistent content. In my humble opinion, now there are some exceptions to this rule. I'm going to give you one. Ryan Levesque. So many of you know that I have been in his high level coaching program for many years. I absolutely got so much incredible value from being in his coaching. And I remember looking at his own Instagram and being like, huh, the last time he's posted was, 2012 or something. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but there are people who do not use things like Instagram to grow their audience. They use things like Facebook ads, they use things like webinars. I love personally using Instagram because that is where my moms are. The majority of my moms are simply hanging out on Instagram. They're there to get inspired. They're there to be entertained. They're there to sometimes escape the challenges of modern motherhood. They're there to seek inspiration and resources from fellow Catholic mothers. Instagram has become a very, very, I would say, um, fun place to be, but also a very saturated in a good way place where people are looking for helpful content. So it's not enough that you're clear on your personal brand. We also need to create consistent content that changes lives. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we can't just post stuff about join my free webinar, or we can't just post stuff about um like this buy beauty counter without explaining why it's going to change someone's life. I really like to encourage the people that I coach to create posts that make people think, that address the deep concerns that keep them up at night. That when they start to bite their nails, or when they start to fidget, or when they're reaching for their phone because they're escaping a challenging or negative emotion, what is a post that you could write that would make her pause? That would make her stop mid scroll, that would make her think about her life a little bit differently, that would make her inspired and maybe motivate her to change. Yes, you should also do the kinds of content that sell your product. That's actually really important. We need to actually sell whatever it is that you're selling. But you also need to, and I believe in more proportion, create content that is really speaking to the heart of your audience. This requires you to know her problem. This requires you to have a sense of what keeps her up at night and, in a way, know her better than she knows herself. And a really great way that I like to think about this is just the concept that you are very likely her in a few years, if you know what I mean. You are a few steps ahead of her on the journey. The women who are inside of Wealth Without Guilt, the majority of them I am simply just a few steps ahead. I was them a few years ago. And so creating content that is where you become a destination. Oh, I know she's going to help me today. Oh, I'm feeling really sad. I know she's going to have something on her feed or in her stories that is going to, liven me up. Oh my gosh, I need to organize this room. Oh, I know I'm going to go to her because she's going to have a really good organization hack, or I know I can scroll her feed and I'm going to find some way to organize toys, for example. And so creating consistent content, and I'm talking consistent because we can't just put up posts and think that people are going to see them. It's just not the way that these social media platforms work. There does need to be a consistent approach to telling your story that will help change your audience's lives. All right, so that is component number 3. So if you are struggling with growth and you're like, why isn't my business working? I would invite you to assess, are you creating content that could actually change someone's life? And I know this might sound like, how on earth could I change someone's life in a Instagram post? But I really want to encourage you to look at the kinds of things that you consume, look at the kind of things that you save and share. They are things that are helpful to you, that are valuable to you. We want you to be valuable to someone else. All right. So, content that changes lives. The fourth component to a 6-figure business is a clear way to buy. So once we have communicated what we do for people, who we are for, what we offer, once we have created consistent content that changes people's lives on the regular, there needs to be a clear way to buy. And I will tell you right now, I would give myself like a B minus on this, even for myself. And what do I mean by that? Meaning when somebody lands on your website, it should be fairly obvious, number one, what you do. So we need to, again, communicate that personal brand. We need to have some content on there that would change somebody's life. But there also needs to be a really clear button that says, hey, work with me. It doesn't have to be that literal necessarily, but like, hey, this is how I can change your life. This is how we can journey further beyond the free content that I have on my website or on my Instagram. There needs to be a simple, straightforward way where when she clicks that button, it leads her to a page where she is invited to see what the details are of your offer and then give you her credit card number, or however you want to do it. Right. So I just like, and this is what's interesting, and this is my small rant with the way that I believe the majority of people try to grow their business. They look for the one thing, or the silver bullet, or this is it. This is the thing that's going to help my business. And here's the thing, I was one of these people. I invested in so many courses, products, boot camps that I would be like, this is the thing that's going to help my business. But if you have an amazing funnel, so if you have a clear way to buy, but then it doesn't convert, we have a problem, right? So, meaning there's a clear way to buy, there's a clear button, it's beautiful, all the pages are laid out well, but nobody is actually clicking buy, we have a problem. Or you could have an amazing funnel. You could invest in a company to create for you incredible, beautiful pages on the internet with an amazing Facebook ad where there's like a high conversion rate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if nobody is actually seeing the ad, or nobody knows about you organically, these beautiful funnels remain beautiful funnels. That's all they remain. They don't remain a vehicle. Let me remind you what we're trying to do here in building a business. We are trying to make impact on the world. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably want to build the kingdom. You probably want to help people's lives. You probably want to enrich them, help them feel less pain, bring them closer to Jesus. We are looking for impact, but we are also looking for money because we want to cover the cost and then some of actually running this business, right? And so I have too often my own business, as well as in the various Facebook groups that I'm in on business and growth, seen people work really hard in maybe one element of a business, I'm picking on this one because there are many products that you can buy on the internet. Not to discredit any of them, I have purchased all of them. I'm just kidding, but I purchased a lot of funnel based improve your funnel products. But a lot of times it can also be that we don't have other components missing. Like, we don't have a clear sense of exactly what you are offering in this funnel. We don't have a clear sense of the problem that you are solving. It is not enough to just have a beautiful page on the internet. It obviously has to convert, because that is what we are in the business of doing, solving problems and then being compensated monetarily for solving said problem. Okay, so a clear way to buy. This also simply means that all of your buttons need to work. There needs to be a successful way that someone's payment is actually deposited into your bank account without error. They need to be able to get the information to log into your course or to your product or access whatever it is that you're selling in a simple and efficient manner. A clear way to buy is so essential. It has to be um, clear that you are open for business. You are not just a hobby. I'll never forget what friends of mine. So I invested in a bit of a mastermind with some online influencers who I knew from my home in Toronto. We were socially like friends. We were friendly with each other, and I invested in a mastermind with them, and it was so interesting the feedback they gave me. In this mastermind, they were like, "We did not know you coached." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they were like, "Yeah, like when you go," this was at the time, and even now I would say that I'm not exactly like A plus in this area. But they were like, "Yeah, like when you go on your website, it's not really that clear exactly that you are a coach." And so these are all very important things to keep in mind. And so if you are feeling like you're not seeing the growth that you desire in your business, take a look at how easy it is for somebody in the busyness that is the internet, right? When a mom is on her phone, she's doing probably 500 things at the same time, or she's bound to get interrupted, or she is, might simply get distracted. We have to make it so simple in the busyness of a modern mom's life. Make it so simple for her to buy. So take a look at how easy it is for her to get the information. When you Google yourself or Google the name of your product, does something come up, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so that is component number 4, a clear way to buy. Component number 5 in the 6 components to a six-figure business is a way to attract new people. Now, this is where the mindset piece also really comes into play. We have to simply accept the reality that no matter how much people like us, they may not be a fit or they may never be a customer. I know this is some mind drama that people in Wealth Without Guilt experience, my group coaching clients experience. This is definitely drama that I've had in the past. It's just simply a reality that there will be people who are attracted to you and will want to buy. That's ideal. We want to attract people who are our ideal client and are willing to buy. But the reality is that number one, some of them, it might not be the time yet. They may be a future purchase. Kathleen LeBlanc, I will always tell her story. I interviewed her here on the podcast a few weeks ago, and it took 4 invitations for her to join me in any of my programs. And now she's basically in all of them. She literally has access to almost everything I've ever made. Um, but there are people who just simply like are just not going to be your customers. And so we have to constantly be quote unquote like there needs to be people who are coming in who are learning about you, because it's not a grounded in reality statement to think that you can just keep selling to the same people, because those people, that pool of people, are some of them are going to buy and then they're done. They're your customer. And then there are some strategies where you could create new products that current customers will buy. Absolutely. But you have to think about, there are going to be people who are just simply there for the fun party that you provide on the internet, but they might not be a fit for your service either now or ever. And so we have to constantly attract new people. This is a huge problem that I had in my business a few years ago, where I was attracting new people, but they weren't the right people. Or I was also not attracting new people because I was not clear exactly what I was offering. P.S. If you're listening to all of this and you're like, my business is doomed, I'm doing all of these things wrong, please have hope. Please have no fear. Please listen to me when I say that this is normal. And you need to go through the iterations, go through the mess, go through the mindset drama, go through whatever it is you're thinking about right now. This clarity is going to help you get to where you want to go to provide the impact and the financial impact for your family that I know that you desire. And that if you're listening to this podcast, you are probably called by to do by God. And so don't worry, just listen, have an open mind, have an open heart, take notes of some of the things that you can assess yourself on, and don't worry. Like, do not worry. This is such a normal part. And this is the part, this is why mindset, this is why I talk about mindset so much. It needs to be embraced. These negative feelings, these challenges, these like, oh my gosh, am I going to make it? Hold lots of space for those things, but you don't need to make the failure or the frustration or the struggle or the, how long it's taking mean anything about you as a person or an entrepreneur. Okay, so we need a way to attract new people. And how might you do this? You might have to find new ways to find these people. Facebook ads, for example, great way. I recommend people don't get into Facebook ads until they have organically been able to convert people. Otherwise, you are investing in testing, which is not a bad idea, but some people do not have money on hand to invest in testing. Um, Things like summits or new creative ways for people to experience you are fun ways to get new people into your world. So for example, I'm a big fan of things like online summits. I mean, they became very popular during the pandemic. I think it's interesting to observe what's happening with them now. But what I like about online summits is that you are clearly positioning yourself to be known as something or for something. If a summit is done well, somebody should be able to walk away from that experience and have a sense, oh, yeah, that is who she helps, because the summit talked about it for a 48-hour period. So many people who join me in Wealth Without Guilt have discovered me through a 48-hour access period that I give people to my Possibility Mom business conference that I released last September. That continues to be something that works really well in terms of getting people into my world who have never met me before to get a bit of a sense of who I am. So if you are struggling in your business in terms of growth, in terms of finding new people, maybe you could look at, what are some ways that I can create live experiences? What are some ways that I can create a boot camp? I love 5-day challenges. I love boot camps. I love anything where people have a sense that at the end of these 5 days, this is what I'm going to get. I'm going to have grown in this area. I'm going to, learn about cutting sugar. I'm going to learn about tidying my home. I'm going to learn about getting more confident. I'm going to learn fun makeup and hair tricks, that kind of a thing. And so a 5-day challenge or some other kind of online group experience where you are leading people through a clear transformation could be a really fun way for you to attract new people. So, component number 5 to a 6-figure business is a way to attract new people. And then finally, and this is very related to what I was just talking about in these live online experiences, is trust so that you can get a heck yes. So when I began my journey with Beauty Counter, I had a lot of drama in my head, and this is why I did not sell for a long time, or I sold very passively. I basically, for about 9 months, didn't do anything with my beauty counter business. I just purchased product and I would mention it from time to time. And it was because I was holding on to this thought of quote unquote being that girl, meaning I didn't want to be somebody who was quote unquote bothering people. I didn't want to be someone who was popping into people's DMs and cold messaging them. I just had a lot of drama about what those activities said about me. I don't have any of that drama anymore, by the way, but I had a lot of drama about what all of those activities said about me. The way I like to approach network marketing and selling online is this concept of, and I've heard this from multiple people. Kristen Boss talks about this a lot. It's this concept of relationship equity. How much have you, as the entrepreneur, invested equity, relationship equity, into the bank account, so to speak, of your audience? This comes back to number three, consistent content that changes lives. When you are creating consistent content that changes someone's life, there is a lot of equity. There is a lot of relationship built where they have a sense of who you are even before you offer them something to buy. I believe this is a huge missing component in the online selling space. This very necessary realization that you are in a relationship with someone. There is somebody on the other, I don't know why I'm getting emotional. I'm so hormonal and so exhausted, but I am getting emotional talking about this. There is a person on the other end of your Instagram post, so to speak, reading and hopefully being encouraged or entertained or helped by something you have written. This is a responsibility, my friends. This is something that we should not take lightly. And I believe we should hold these relationships as dear to us. And I know this sounds weird. And again, I'm not, hear me realistically. Like, obviously, you're not holding them in the same kind of way that you do your in real life friendships. But in a way, I would encourage people to think about it like that. Like that these people are people that you really care about in terms of their transformation. And then that should even go even deeper into your customers. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I believe that if you are in the industry of life coaching, if you are in the industry of wanting to help people grow and develop, whether it is in business or whether it is in life coaching, for example, you should desire their transformation just as much as they do, if not more. Like, and again, don't misunderstand, they are the ones responsible for the change. You can't change them or anything. But there is something very powerful that happens when you are thinking about all the content you create, the systems that you have in your business, the way that you develop to constantly have the change and betterment and future, so to speak, of your customers. And I would say also of your audience in mind. And I believe that this plays a huge, huge, huge role in people saying yes to you when there is a time to buy. Okay, so I want to share with you kind of a vulnerable, I guess, ish, not really, but I want to share you a story. As I mentioned, I am right here in the pool with you talking about these components and looking at where in my own business presently I could grow in some of these areas, but I have some pretty decent data from the past. So in the past, I have had a way to buy. I've invested in the past in great marketing firms who built me beautiful sales pages, copy, all the things. I had I would say, a decent personal brand during this time that I'm talking about. I had a decent way to attract new people. Um, and my content probably could have used a little bit of help. And that is where it related to not being able to get people to say yes. So when I first launched things under the Possibility Mom type of, banner, I was selling my book, and we built out these beautiful funnels to sell my book. And these beautiful funnels included very professionally created videos. I had it in my head that I had to look like all the other online, experts that I saw online. And so I invested in incredible videography. I invested in getting my hair and makeup done. I was always wearing false eyelashes and just they looked really slick. They did not convert. And I was like, what is happening? I do not understand. I believe so much in my book. I believe so much in what I'm selling. Why are these not converting? And the marketing coach that I was working with was like, I wonder if there is an absence of relatability and there's a disconnect in how this information is being presented, which was really slick, which was really polished, and with the content that you're actually talking about. You're talking about how motherhood is a journey, a process, challenging at times, but it's actually like the way that you're presenting it, looking so slick and polished, is not relatable to your target audience. And so we went back, looked at different ways that I could present the content. That was when I started doing stories, started doing day in the life, started just sharing my real life, spit up on my shirt, not false eyelashes in, all that kind of stuff. And it really changed things. I really got more to the heart of what my people were actually struggling with by sharing more of my own struggle. There was a trust built. And I really do believe that this is an important thing for an entrepreneur to look at. Have you established trust in the way that you are presenting your offers, in the content that you're creating that builds relationship equity? Are there enough touch points that create trust with your audience so that they're actually a heck yes before you even sell? So if you are struggling with closing or converting after you have your beautiful funnels, underway and you have Facebook ads behind them, if you struggle with converting people to actual sales, I would look at, have we built enough trust either in the way that you deliver the actual sale? So, for example, a webinar, is there enough trust built there in the webinar where they understand their problem and can actually help you? And is there enough trust overall in your brand that you have given enough relationship equity? As you can see, I get really, really excited about this content because this is, again, these 6 components. I believe many entrepreneurs will invest in a few of them. They might buy a course on how to make reels, for example, as a way to attract new people, or as a way to create a personal brand or content that changes lives. They might invest in a course to do some cute reels, but then they don't actually have an offer or a clear offer or an offer that converts on the back end of that reel. And they're like, why is my business not growing? Or, like I mentioned in myself, you can have incredible funnels built, but if you're not really speaking the language of your audience, if you're not really communicating and helping solve a problem that she actually has, that she can actually identify, we are in a little bit of trouble. So, this is what I wish someone had told me, that there needs to be a more holistic approach, that the 6 components need to be looked at in cohesion, in relationship to each other. It's not enough to just look at one of them or 2 of them. I believe that if you are struggling in growth, that there is 1 or 2 or more of these components that just needs a little bit of work in. This is what I do in Wealth Without Guilt. I I really believe that this holistic approach, this approach to mindset, and then all of the skill set that is involved in having, especially an online business, need to be taught together. And for a Catholic entrepreneur who wants a Catholic mindset, this is what I offer. And so I want to invite you in the description below. I've got a link where you can join me this Wednesday at 12 p.m. East for a free webinar where you can learn how to do these 6 things. I'm going to be offering some further strategy on these 6 components, as well as what this looks like to do on an ongoing basis in my group coaching experience for Catholic moms called Wealth Without Guilt. So you can register for this live webinar in the description below. I am grateful to do this. Like I said, it is such a highlight for me. It's really interesting when you can look at the things that give you life, especially in this postpartum stage where last night I had the most epic sleepless night. Like it was just one of those nights where I was like, wow, you really, Andrew, you are not, sleep is not for you tonight. But then when you think, like, I really, I love encouraging moms to find the thing that gives them life, that gives them energy, um, that really is, as Jen Fulwiler talks about in her book, is a blue flame where when you ignite it, everything else benefits from. And so I just love being able to spend some time with you on Fridays as you go into the weekend. Thank you so much. If this podcast was helpful to you, I would love for you to give it a review. This is how you know I'm sleep deprived, when I can't formulate sentences as cogently as normal. I have to like speak slowly to form a cogent sentence. But if you appreciated this podcast, I would so appreciate it if you could give it a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. If you're watching this on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And join me this Wednesday at 12 p.m. East for my free webinar on how to build a business and wealth without guilt. All right, friends, until next time.